Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm your host, George Rideout, and as always, working the soundboard is Lynn. I think we're going to have a very interesting and informative program this morning. Now, I guess I can't really call it a radio visit, this Skype visit, and I'll have to give a shout out to our friend over in Wales for giving us this awesome connection. Gary A. David earned a master's degree in English literature from the University of Colorado and is a former adjunct professor. He is also a poet with numerous volumes published. In addition, he is a professional musician, publisher, and executive director/webmaster for the Orion Zone. For over 3 decades, Gary has worked as a wayward wordsmith. Gary has been intrigued by the Four Corners region of the United States since his initial trip there in 1987. The following year, he spent 6 months examining rock art and indigenous ruins in northern New Mexico. This prompted a move to Arizona in 1994, where he began to study intensively the ancestral Pueblo people, sometimes misnamed the Anasazi, and their descendants, the Hopi. He has had more than a decade of independent fieldwork and research. He kind of has a trilogy about said research. The first one is the Orion Zone, Ancient Star Cities of the American Southwest. The second one is Eye of the Phoenix, Mysterious Visions and Secrets of the American Southwest. And the third, and newest, is the Kivas of Heaven, Ancient Hopi Star Lore. So sit back, get comfy, and listen to a decade of independent fieldwork and research from an author who speaks on Indian legends, prophecies, and the influence of the star people in earthly life. Here is Gary A. David. Enjoy. It's interesting. I've been doing some reading, and you grew up on the southern part of Lake Erie, and I used to swim in the northern part of Lake Erie.
Is that right? Well, my parents once took a rather, I didn't go with them, but they took a boat trip across Lake Erie and made it to the other side. So,
Wow.
My dad was kind of crazy, but
Yeah, I don't know if I'd, and now I don't even know if I'd want to swim in Lake Erie. Back in those days you could, but now I don't know if I'd want to step foot in there now.
Well, I did as a kid. We went to the beach a lot, and then during the late '60s, Cleveland was infamous for having the river that caught on fire. But I think they've cleaned it up, since.
Yeah,
much
that's
better
actually,
than
I did hear that too.
with it in the '70s. So
Yeah.
I haven't been back there for a long time.
Yeah, me neither. We left Ontario when I was 8, and I've only been back maybe visiting a few people, but not really back to the southern Ontario where I grew up at.
Right.
How did you get pulled into that area in Arizona?
Well, I've lived here in Arizona for about 15 years. Northern Arizona, which is where the Hopi and the Navajo primarily live, and some Apache. And I got interested in some of the Hopi ceremonies, and I started going up to the Hopi reservation soon after I got here, and going to some of the pueblos and visiting some of the dances that they have, the Kachina dances. And some of your listeners might be familiar with the Kachina dolls that the Hopi carve. They've carved these for centuries, these kind of dolls. And they have dances every spring, starting in something like late April or early May, and going through through the summer solstice and into July. And this is basically the agricultural time for the Hopi. And these Kachinas are benevolent spirit messengers that have assisted the Hopi and the agricultural cycle for hundreds of years. Some archaeologists try to put a date on when the Kachina, they call it the Kachina cult, started. And some believe that it started around 1300 AD.
Wow.
And they started having these dances out in the open plaza, on the square plaza in the village. And it's quite striking to witness some of these dances, because you're surrounded by this amazing landscape where you can see almost 100 miles in every direction, and the houses, the villages are made of stone and adobe. And then you're in the plaza and you see these dancers come out, and they're so colorful and they're so bizarre. These Kachinas are really incredibly bizarre looking from our standpoint. It's hard to describe them because they're so different. All the Kachinas are so different. They're basically masks that the Hopi people have carved, and the masks might be circular or dome shaped or cylindrical, and there are a lot of different horns and feathers coming off a specific Kachina. Um, some might be bug-eyed, or others just have slits for eyes. Some of these have the mask almost look like helmets of some sort. They look extraterrestrial, to put it bluntly. I mean, they just look like they came from outer space. And to see these Kachinas dancing, and they dance all day long in the hot sun, and around in the circle to the drum beat of a single cottonwood drum. And it's just a very moving ceremony. And of course, there are breaks during the day where they go back into the kiva, which is an underground prayer chamber, and they dance all day long. And they're doing it basically to honor these spirit messengers that came to the Hopi people in very early times and helped them with the agricultural cycle.
Each one
It's
represents some kind of archetypal, I guess, being, right?
exactly, they can be naturalistic, like the eagle Kachina, or the corn Kachina, or the mole Kachina. They're various, but there are other strange, like the star Kachina, the Sohu Kachina. Um, they don't represent anything in our physical universe. So
God, that would be something to see. Yeah. Holy.
yeah, it's you can come out to the Hopi reservation, but it's always a kind of you see these things by chance, because there are no schedules, saying what Kachina dance is being danced at a certain village. There are 12 villages on the Hopi reservation, and they're spread out across three primary mesas: first, second, and third mesa. And you just have to go up there and ask around, or have a Hopi friend telling you where a specific dance is being held at a specific village. And some of the villages do not like non-Hopis attending the ceremonies, and others are more open and welcoming, and they want to try to have the world at large see what's going on in Hopi country.
Right. Kind of goes straight across a lot of the different native peoples. I traveled a while with a sweat leader, and
Oh, uh-huh.
he was chastised by his peoples because he would let whites take part in helping him build the sweat, and he was also like teaching a few of us how to build them traditionally and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So it kind of goes, and I understand it. I understand the cultural dissimilation. I understand their point of view. Um, I kind of looked at it as spirit is spirit, and I think for the most part, um, when you're doing it with your heart and being guided by spirit, most times they see that.
I think so. Yeah, I think a lot more elders are opening up to the possibility of sharing the knowledge with the world, even though they've been exploited through the years.
Big time.
By, it's here in Hopi country in the late 19th century. You had anthropologists coming in and just kind of barging into these ceremonies uninvited, and after a while the Hopi kind of got sick of it, sick of being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And then they'd have these snake dances, which are held in August after the Kachina season has ended. And this used to be a big tourist attraction here in Arizona. They used to have, like people coming up, driving up from Winslow, which is about a little over 50 miles away south of the Hopi country, and driving there and, watching these dances. And the dances are essentially done with rattlesnakes and bull snakes, and they put the snakes in their mouth and they wrap them around their head, and it's quite a spectacle. I've never seen one, but it used to be a big tourist attraction. In fact, novelist D.H. Lawrence even has written about one of the snake dances that he witnessed in the early part of the 20th century. So it used to be, and finally the Hopi just got sick of it. This kind of exploitation. There was even a group that met and that formed in Arizona, in Prescott, Arizona, which is near where I'm living, and they called themselves the Smoke Eye People. And these are basically white businessmen that would dress up in Hopi garb and perform these false Hopi ceremonies and false snake dances that didn't have anything to do really with the Hopi spirituality. But that the extreme example of exploitation. And people like Barry Goldwater, the senator, used to participate in these dances.
Oh God.
But I can see why the native peoples are kind of wary of sharing their knowledge. But on the other hand, I see another trend going on, that they realize that we perhaps may be at the end of an era, end of an age, and we need to really look at some of the native knowledge and examine it before things really get out of hand and what the Hopi call the fourth world ends. So a lot of elders think that the fourth world is pretty well at the end. This is the era. It's an epoch or an era of time. It's not a place in particular, but it's a segment of time that is coming to the end.
Yeah.
And we could talk about this a little bit about Hopi prophecy.
We'll get into that a bit later, maybe. But definitely we'll get into that at some point.